And I wanted to ask you that if a person has already fallen in love, even if the person is not following hijab and because of that gets into it but later on realizes his or her mistake, then how would a person convince the person who has fallen in love? What measures would you give to stay away from it and to maintain the hijab and so that the person does not fall prey to his or her desires like staring and stuff like that?
Just to ask the question that if a person, being a teenager, that's what was the earlier question, has fallen in love and because of some habits, maybe staring and intermingling, which now he has realized. So what advice can we give him so that he comes out of it? Now the question is fallen in love. How much has he fallen is important. So first I'll do a survey. How much has he fallen? To what extent has he fallen? To which levels of Sharia has he fallen or she has fallen? So first I'll do that and then I'll try and advise him. If it's just an infatuation with the person has breaking certain rules of the hijab and little bit intermingling, little bit handshakes and all, little bit going out and all, that it's easier to get him out. But if he's fallen so deep to the bottom of the well that he had a relationship, then my advice would be different. Fine? Because the Quran also says in Surah Nur chapter 24, verse number 3, that adulterous woman should marry an adulterous man or an unbelieving man. For Zani, it's a Zaniyat. And for Zaniyat, it's a Zani. So based on this, my advice would be different, trying to find what extent is there, who's the girl, or the girl has fallen into boy, who's that boy, how well can they get along together, etc. So the advice would depend upon what level has the person fallen. If it's extreme level, I'll try and find that, see to it that if he has improved or she has improved, and the other girlfriend or boyfriend, what level is he or she, and then try and counsel. And if both can come to the straight path, what they've done is wrong, that's no problem. If both are coming to the straight path and both have realized their mistake and they agree to follow Quran and Sunnah, I would say, okay, get married. Fine. So at least they're following the verse of the Quran, that both have committed that sin and both continue. But if it is that they have not gone to that deep level, then it is but natural. You say it's an infatuation, what it is wrong. Stay away from it. And but natural, get him closer to the Islamic activities, ask him to read the Quran, ask him to see Islamic lectures. And but natural, one of the important thing is lowering the gaze. That whenever you're interacting with any opposite sex, if he or she is not the mahram, then you lower the gaze. This is very important. This is a very important factor because if you have to talk with the opposite, lowering the gaze, then the chances of getting infatuated is less. But if you lower the gaze and meet every day for half an hour and talk, if it's a classmate, then also there's a problem. Lowering the gaze and talking, then the voice is sufficient to infatuate you. Same thing. So all these are things that should not meet the opposite sex unnecessarily. You know how you, where do you go? I went out, I went to Singapore for holiday. Oh, how was it? Very good. Which is the last movie you saw? These things you can speak. The girl can speak with the girlfriend. The boy can speak with the boyfriend. But opposite sex don't require it all. So these things which are not required, not a must to speak, should be avoided while speaking with the opposite sex. And when required, when certain thing is there, when you have to speak with lowering the gaze, whether it's a duty of performing or in college, etc. So in that time, lowering the gaze and speaking, this will prevent them from getting involved in this thing. And the best is, if you're young, get married as early as possible. As I mentioned earlier, beloved Prophet ﷺ said, it's hadith of Sahih Bukhari, Volume number 7, in the book of Nikah, chapter number 3, hadith number 4, that, oh young people, whoever has the means to get married should get married. So that will protect the modesty. So best is marrying early. If you marry early, it is good. There are less chances of deviating. And it's easier to be on the Quran and Sunnah. And there are many benefits. So marrying early is preferable. But again, that's the reason you try and find a life partner. And don't wait too long. I'm trying to find a good life partner now. Now I'm only 20, now 21, 22, then you're 30. Then all your options that you have run down. So don't wait till 35, 40 and then you sit down to compromise. So earlier the better. When you realize after maybe a few months or a couple of years the market is what you want and not getting. So see to it that you take the decision fast. Don't be too late. Then your compromise will keep on getting so low. So then you realize, oh, that person what I had is far 10 times better than what I got now. The person you rejected, thinking he's not virtuous, your virtuous definition. The one you marry is 10 times worse than him and has other problems, but then it is your choice. So that's very important, the decision that you take. Therefore, being in consultation with someone who's knowledgeable, someone who's experienced, someone who can guide you is very important in this case. Hope that answers the question, sister.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
My question is, can a wife insist on separate living quarters for herself and her children away from in-law, knowing that the parents are old and husband can't afford maintenance of two homes? Does he have to fulfill her demand?
Sister has a question that, is it permissible for a woman to ask her husband for separate lodging and boarding, a separate family, rather than staying with the parent-in-laws, knowing very well that he cannot afford it? It's totally wrong. It's putting the husband in difficulty and putting yourself in difficulty. So if you know that the husband can't afford and you put, fine, before marriage, no problem. Before you marry, you say, I'll marry you if you have a new home, I cannot stay, that's permissible. He won't marry you, you don't marry him, you can stay separately, no problem. Once you are married, then you put the condition that I want to stay separately, and he may be earning less. He has his duties to look after the family as well look after the parents. Because his Jannah is beneath the feet of his mother. So you want to take your husband out of his Jannah is wrong, sister. And especially knowing very well that he cannot afford it, so do you want him to throw parents out of the house? That means you're not a virtuous wife. The virtuous wife would never say that. So taking care of the parents indirectly also becomes the duty of the wife. Though they may not be your direct mother and father, but they are father-in-law and mother-in-law. Because you have to look after your husband, and one of the duties of your husband is to look after his parents, so it becomes indirect your duty. Indirect, it becomes a duty. Indirect. Since you are the Mohsana, you have to try and see to it that you don't create problems. But if he says you have to separate, you say, no problem, why do you require separate? If he says that there's so much difficulty, all staying together, so you have to solace him and say that this difficulty, no problem, at least this will take us to Jannah. If we stay separately, then I won't be able to serve your mother, you won't be able to serve your mother. So better we face some difficulties in this world so that we have a Jannah in the hereafter. That's a Mohsana. So I feel, yes, fine, if they're very well off and if they stay separately and you can look after the parents also, and saying that fine, because my parents are elderly, they prefer staying separately and they don't mind, and you have a separate, then it's fine. If that's the wish of the parents, or if it's easily done and yet he takes care of both, he can keep someone to take care, etc., that's permissible. But if it's difficult and if it's poor, going to get difficulties for you and your parents and all, then I feel it should not be done. Hope that answers the question.
Brother, if a non-Muslim girl marries a Muslim boy, is it compulsory for her to change her name after marriage?
If a non-Muslim girl marries a Muslim boy, unless she doesn't accept Islam, she cannot marry. If a
After she accepts Islam and she marries,
and then marries, does she have to change the name? It is not compulsory for her to change the name unless the name involves shirk. If the name involves shirk, like Lakshmi. Lakshmi is the name of one of the goddesses. If it involves shirk, she'll have to change it. If it does not involve shirk, it's not for to change, but it is preferable. It's preferable, especially in this age. Though at that time people never should change the name. But here I feel it's a requirement, because if she's proud to be a Muslim, why should she not want people to know that she accepted Islam? So if she's only done for namesake, because of infatuation, then that she will not want to change. She doesn't want to show that yet she is a non-Muslim. So my advice in such case would be that it is preferable that she changes the name, so that the people will not get a misunderstanding that she is yet a non-Muslim. But it's not a farz to change. That answers the question.
Jazakallah.
Any sisters have any questions?
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
What is meher and what is its purpose?
What is meher and what is its purpose? Meher is a marital gift. And the Quran says in Surah Nisa chapter 4 verse number 4 that give to the woman in marriage a marital gift, a dower. So meher is one of the criteria, is very important criteria for marriage to solemnize. When a marriage takes place between a man and a woman, when the contract is said that do you accept this woman as your wife and do you accept this man as your husband, and then there has to be a stipulated amount of meher. Now meher is compulsory for marriage to solemnize, and there are hadiths which say that there is no limitation for meher. The Quran says in Surah Nisa chapter 4 verse number 20 that you can even give a mountain of gold in meher. On the other hand, there's a Sahaba who says that I want to marry but I don't have any money. So he said, do you have any money? He said, nothing. So the Prophet asked him that do you know a few verses of the Quran? He says, yes. So teach these verses to your wife and that is meher. So teaching certain verses of the Quran which you have memorized to your wife can also be meher. So that's one of the lowest end described in the hadith, and the highest end is the mountain of gold. So there's no extent to the meher. But normally meher is to be decided both by the would-be husband and wife based on the economic status. There's no limit for meher, but normally it is decided on the economic status of the would-be husband and wife. And meher can be used for various ways. People normally have misunderstanding that meher is only used for divorce. You know, when you divorce, so this meher will be useful. It may be one of the reasons. When you're marrying, are you thinking of divorce first? When you're marrying, you're thinking you live with that man for lifetime, inshallah, and that man thinks he'll be with that girl for lifetime. Nobody thinking of divorce. So to think that meher is for divorce, it can be utilized if, God forbid, divorce takes place. But meher is a marital gift. In our Indian culture, it's the opposite. It is the would-be wife who gives to the husband. And depending upon the status, if it is graduate, then 100,000 rupees, engineer 500,000 rupees. If it's a doctor, then 1 million rupees, as the herds and cattle are being sold in the marketplace. Demanding dowry from the would-be wife, directly or indirectly, is haram in Islam. You can't even give an indication that, you know, my son likes to travel in a Mercedes car, indicating I want a Mercedes car in dowry. My son likes to live in a 3-bedroom apartment, indicating I want a 3-bedroom apartment for dowry. Directly or indirectly demanding anything from the would-be wife is haram. If the parents of the girl willingly give certain gifts, it's permissible. But demanding is prohibited. On the other hand, it is the would-be husband that gives to the wife. But nowadays, you know, you have custom that you keep a meher of 786 rupees. With 786 rupees, you can't even buy a pair of shoes. And then they spend tens of lakhs of rupees on decoration, reception, but keep the meher as 786 rupees. Where do they get this from? Though there are no limit for meher, as I said, it is mutually decided by the would-be husband. Many times, okay, fine, everything is decided in the morning. Arey, aaj sham ko nikah meher ka amount fix nahi kiye. No, today is the nikah, we haven't fixed the meher, kuch bhi likho, okay, 786, okay, mention 500 rupees or mention 5,000 rupees, as though it's not important at all. Actually, meher is decided by the would-be husband and wife, depending upon the economic status, depending upon the financial status. It can be a mountain of gold, it can be a few verses of the Quran, and a person can demand, okay, I want so and so. If the person says, okay, you have demanded 100,000 rupees, I'm poor, I can't give. So either she reduces the meher, or she finds a new husband and he finds a new wife. So there can be a compromise, there can be a bargaining, no problem. But the meher can be utilized in various ways. Maybe the girl is poor, and she thinks that fine, now I've asked for 50,000 rupees as meher, I would like to gift it to my parents. My parents spent so much of money, so much of time, energy upbringing me, I want to give this as gift. Example. She can maybe keep it for her children when they grow up. She can invest it in some business. Whatever return she gets, she can utilize it. She is the owner of that meher. And meher are of 3 types. One is whatever meher you decide. You give the complete amount at the time of nikah. Second type is you delay it, you say, I will give it later. But when you say give it later, it has to be given. And if the husband dies, first the meher amount is removed from his inheritance, and then the balance amount is distributed in the inheritors, person who inherit. The third type is partly you give at the time of nikah and partly delay it. These are the various types of meher, and there are various utilization of meher. And one utilization can also be that, God forbid, if something happens and if divorce takes place, she can utilize the money. That's one of the utilization. Hope that answers the question, sister.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
My question is, if a lady is unable to conceive, can she adopt a child? And can they give their name to the adopted child if they are unable to find out who's the father of that child?
Just ask the question that if a lady cannot conceive, can she adopt a child? Can they give the child their name? If they cannot conceive, for them to adopt a child, that means giving fatherly love, motherly love is no problem, but they cannot legally adopt. You cannot legally give your name. Because in Islam, whoever is the father and mother, they remain the same. You cannot give your name. You cannot deceive the child. On the day of judgment, when they'll be resurrected with the name of the father. So you can't give your name. Yes, if he calls you mother, no problem. Calls you mummy, you call him beta, no problem. Call her beti, no problem. But legally the name cannot be bint so-and-so or ibn so-and-so. If you don't know, you don't know. You say you don't know. But you can't give your name. You can give your motherly love, fatherly love. Call them beta, beti, no problem. They can call you mummy, daddy, no problem. But legally, you cannot give your name. And you have to tell the child that, fine, I am not your real mother and father. And there are various reasons for that. Maybe you don't have a child, you adopted a child now. Tomorrow you have a child, then what? High possibility. So then you cannot tell the child. And then suppose you adopted a girl and you have a son. They both are non-mahram. So they can't behave like brother and sister. So then you have to later on. Or maybe when you grow up, for example, you don't have any children. When you die, if that child you have adopted, as a boy you have adopted, is your son, and if your husband dies, if you have a son, then you get 1/8 the share. If you have no son, you get 1/4. Now you have adopted and your husband dies. Your inheritance share would be 1/4 because you have no children. The moment you legally adopt, your share becomes half of that 1/8. So it's injustice to you. Your husband, if he wants to put a share, the Islamic Sharia gives you permission that besides the inheritors, maximum you can will to someone who is not an inheritor is 1/3. So you adopt, don't give your name, and yet if you want to give part of your wealth, whether 1%, 5%, 10%, less than 33% you can give. It's permitted in Islam. So various things are there, hijab level is there, etc. If you adopt a girl, when she grows up, she has to do hijab with your husband. So all these things, therefore, telling is very important that you are not our blood child, but yet we'll treat you like our child. No problem. Hope that answers the question. Any sisters have any questions?
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
If a lady, she is interested in getting married and she wants her spouse to be of the similar profession, keeping the virtue criteria on the top, and second criteria being of the same profession, so as the later on the marriage life is smooth for them because of the profession itself and hectic schedule. If she wants a spouse of the same profession, is it fair on her part to keep that criteria?
Sister asked the question that if a girl or a boy wants to marry and they're looking for a virtuous life partner, but wants the life partner to be of the same profession so that the marriage life is smooth, is it fair or not? And she said doctor, but then she didn't say. If it's doctor, it's very difficult. If husband and wife both are doctor, then very difficult. So we have a misconception that if both are of the same profession, marriage is always smooth. Many a times if they are of the same profession, marriage is not smooth. So it's a misconception, especially being a doctor. If you say both are dais and the profession, then it's very good, mashallah. Because dai is the work of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And when I selected a dai, I wanted to be a dai. So mashallah, our profession is the same. So it depends upon which profession they are in. So it is not a general rule that if the profession is same, then life would be smooth. Imagine a boy is an engineer, he wants a girl who is an engineer. How can you have a virtuous engineer lady doing a work of engineering? Yeah, it is difficult. She's going to go in the field. So what you have to realize that sometimes the profession same may be beneficial, sometimes it doesn't make a difference, sometimes it is detrimental. So engineer marrying a girl who's an engineer, then what job should you do outside? But if someone keeps a criteria, if it's going to be beneficial, like a dai says, I want to marry a dai, that's good, alhamdulillah, it's virtue and dai, good, alhamdulillah. But if you add any criteria to virtue, if you can get, it's excellent. But when you add a criteria, you say, I want virtue. But doctor, you are looking more for doctor than virtue. It is to show to people. No, I want virtues. You say, I want to reject. But when beauty is not the criteria, how did you reject by looking at the photograph? You know, many of my people who I know, I want a virtue. How virtuous girl? When the photo shoot, I don't want to look at her. I don't want to have a meeting with her. Why? I said, do you have a special sense that you can read by the photograph, Hazrat Umar, may Allah be pleased with him? He had that power to read faces. I said, do you have that, power to read faces, So it is basically the person who they're interacting with, they want to convince that person that I'm according to your criteria. So when they look at a virtuous person, I want a virtuous wife. When they are meeting someone who's not virtuous, no problem, I want beauty. If they meet a friend who's wealthy, okay, I want wealthy. So it should come from the heart, that's important. And the moment you add, you can add, but see to it that the addition does not lower the value of virtue. That's very important. Any other sisters have any question?
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
If wife is bedridden, sick,
If the wife is bedridden
and not able to fulfill physical requirement of husband, then husband can get second married. Whereas a husband is unwell and not able to fulfill her requirement, then what are the reservation of wife?
Sister asked a very good question, that if a wife is bedridden and cannot fulfill the duty of a wife, cannot have a relationship, it's possible for a husband to get a new wife. But the vice versa. If the husband is bedridden, for a wife to get a new husband is not possible. Why? Very good question. Point number one. If the wife is bedridden, the husband has an option of divorcing her and marrying a new wife, or keeping her and marrying a new wife. Anyone would say that the second option is better. That keeping her, maintaining her, giving her proper justice, proper time. You can't say, okay, now I won't give her time, and marry a new one. In the other case, if the husband is bedridden and cannot fulfill the duty of a husband, cannot have relationship, here the option for the wife is that she continues with him or she divorces. Why? If she does not divorce and she marries someone else and keeps the first husband also, you cannot give a guarantee that he will not get well. Allah will give shifa. Tomorrow if he gets well then, and then if he has a relationship then, problem. So the option is that either you continue with him and sacrifice your needs, or you divorce him, because if you divorce a bedridden man, yet he can get another wife. But if you divorce a bedridden woman, for her to get a new husband is very difficult. So it's protecting the woman. It's better for the woman. For the woman who feels that she cannot continue with the husband who's bedridden, and she wants to divorce, she can take nikah fast. If she says, no, I want to sacrifice, I want to get sawab, I'll continue staying with my husband and sacrifice my other needs so that it will be my pathway to Jannah, alhamdulillah. Or if she says that I cannot take it, I have my own limitations, and she divorces, that's permissible, depending on what extent is the seriousness of the husband. But for the man, he can get a wife, easier for him to get a wife even if he's bedridden than for a bedridden woman to get a husband. Hope that answers the question, sister.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
Many divorced women are not getting proposals because of their past life, even if she is practicing Muslim. Please comment.
Sister asked the question that divorced women do not get husband because of a past. Please comment. This is the society, sister. In our society, divorce is like a stigma. Today we know in the Western world divorce is very common, which is wrong. It should not be that common. But to say that divorce should not take place is also wrong, because if you read the seerah of the Sahabas, there were Sahabas and Sahabiyat who were good and virtuous and yet not compatible. Both were virtuous but they were not compatible. They divorced and somebody else married them. It was common. Not as common as the Western world, but it wasn't a stigma. Today, in our culture, it's like a stigma. Oh, divorce. And it's more difficult for a lady who's a divorcee to get a new match rather than a boy who's a divorcee. This is more of the culture, sister. You are saying that even if she's virtuous, she will not get. Again, the criteria is that she may be virtuous, alhamdulillah, in the market because of the culture that is there. But if a virtuous boy is there, and even if he has not got married, and if he sees the divorcee, and he knows she is virtuous, and he knows that the reason for divorce was not because of her, then surely he would not mind getting married to a divorcee. Because our Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, except for one wife, All the others, they were either divorcees or they were widows. All. Except one. All the rest. Means more than 80%. So, it is mashallah the Prophet Muhammad. So at that time, that case wasn't there. But today I know it's a stigma. It's more of the culture rather than the religion. Hope that answers the question.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
It is said if the husband is not happy with the wife goes to the hell. And if at all the angels keep cursing the whole night, the wife and all. But what if it is the vice versa, if the wife is not happy with the husband?
Sister, I think you're misquoting the hadith. The hadith of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is that if the wife refuses to share the bed with the husband, if the husband wants, then in the night the angels will keep on cursing her the full night. That's the hadith. That if the wife refuses to have a relationship with the husband when he wants, then the angels will curse. But the question is the vice versa? The same means if the wife wants to have a relationship with the husband and the husband refuses, so will the angels curse or not? There is no such hadith saying that if the husband refuses to have a relationship with the wife, so the angels will curse. So I cannot say this is true. But one thing to be noted is that today science tells us that a man is more sexual as compared to the woman. A man is more hypersexual as compared to the woman. That is the reason for a man to do the role of multiple husband, marrying more than one wife, and yet doing duty of multiple husband is possible, which is not possible for the woman. So man is more hypersexual as compared to the woman. So in this context, if the hadith says that if a man wants to fulfill his desire, and if the wife doesn't agree, then the angels will curse. And I do agree with the hadith, because if the husband is there, and if he cannot fulfill his need with the wife, then who will he go to? And for a man, he is more hypersexual, and for him to control is more difficult as compared to a woman. Similarly, in the vice versa case, that if a wife wants to have a relationship with the husband, and the husband refuses, there is no hadith saying that the angels will curse. But the other hadith, that the best moment is he who is the best to his family, including his wife, proves that he is not good to his wife. Furthermore, there is a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ who said that when you spend time with your wife and have a relationship, even that is charity. Sahaba said, Ya Rasulullah, what do you mean? That when we have a relationship with our wife, it's charity? The Prophet said that because you are not doing something which is haram. To have relationship with someone who is not your wife, to someone who is outside the marital bond, is haram. So because they are not doing a haram, even that is charity. So imagine, to get sawab is so easy. Having a sexual relationship with your wife earns sawab for both of them. In the outside world, sex is seen in two ways. One is, to one extreme, free sex, everything, no problem. Anyone, Tom, Dick and Harry, no problem. Free sex, Rajneesh. You go to all these beaches, free. On the other extreme, if you are religious, no sex, monasticism. Nuns, sadhus go to Himalaya. It's not possible. Islam is a religion that's of moderation. It caters to the body as well as to the soul. So that is the reason a prophet said that even having sexual relationship with your spouse is charity. Imagine, even a poor man can do charity.